duže smiruje. Boban napada.
Well, that was the game, the famous game that never happened almost 34 years ago. Well, 34 years ago, one day. Good evening, folks. My name is Tonči Prusat, and joining me, as he does week in, week out, Ante Grabovac. Ante, 34 years, how time quickly flies.
Yeah, unbelievable. Absolutely monumental moment in football history. I mean, world football history, not only Croatian football history, let me tell you.
Yeah, now for those that don't really know what happened there, Zvonimir Boban, the legendary Croatian footballer playing at Dinamo Zagreb back then when he kicked the Yugoslav milicioner, as they used to call the police back then. After it was, it's all over the YouTube these days. It's all about that. But in Zagreb yesterday, we had Boban there 34 years later. And for those of you who've ever been to the Maksimir Stadium, out the front there is a very touching and a very, very beautiful monument to all the members of the Bad Blue Boys who lost their lives fighting for Croatian independence. On the left, of course, there's that famous kung fu kick by Boban, and on the right, Boban of today still looks like he could play, doesn't he, Ante? He looks like he could pull on the boots, and probably does in some of those friendlies and benefit games and things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure he's got still all the skills. It's just whether he could follow it up with all the age that has caught up with him. But absolute legend of Croatian football, obviously not only as a result of that kick, but obviously what he did at AC Milan, what he did at the World Cup, everything else. I mean, Zvonimir Boban, if you haven't watched him on videos, the younger generation, I mean, go do yourself a favor because he was an absolute superstar.
He was. And it's funny, there's a lot of, people like the younger kids, for example, these days who weren't even born in the 90s, for example. They hear, in 2018, everyone talked about the Vatreni from 1998, the 2022 Croatian World Cup team, Modric, etc. They all always refer to their idols, their legends, Šuker, Boban, Prosinečki, etc., Ladic and Štimac, all of those from yesteryear. And I guess today, with as I said, with YouTube and the internet, the beauty of the internet, that is the beauty of the internet, you can find and research so much, and people are starting to really see some of those legends of yesteryear. But yeah, we pay tribute and we pay homage to what was, as you said, off-air, Ante, a monumental moment in world football and indeed world history, and closer to home, Croatian football and Croatian history.
Absolutely, Tonči.
Now, mate, we've got a massive show lined up tonight. Let's talk about who we've got and what we've got tonight. And yeah, it's just going to be a huge show, aren't it?
Yeah, we've got the news desk as usual, and then followed by that, we're going to show a bit of the interview that's been causing a lot of commentary. I still haven't been able to listen to it or watch it. It's the interview with Mark Viduka and Joey Barton, who himself is a character. So, I'm looking forward to seeing this excerpt and then watching. I think you said there was 2 hours of it.
It goes for 2 hours. Let me tell you, it is worth. Like when I heard about it, a prominent president of a football club down here in Victoria sort of let me know, texted me about this, and that night I can't remember what night it was. But I had to. I was up till like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was riveted. I really. Now we're going to have about a 5-minute excerpt of that, a 5-minute clip. Now, Mark Viduka, he's just an entertaining fella when he talks, because you know what it is. He talks from the heart and he says it as is. He hasn't got that dlaka na jeziku, as they say in Croatian. He says it the way he sees it. And look, apart from the insights into his football career, which is really interesting and it's worth just watching it for that, but his views on politics and his views on the situation in Croatia back in history and also today are really interesting. So, folks, do hang about after the news desk. We've got, like I said, about a 5-minute clip of that. and it's worth hanging around just to hear the big V Bomber talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, we've got a big interview with a guy who has got a great history in Croatian Australian football with Sydney United and with South Coast United, and he's done quite a number of other things with football. Got his own academy now, and that is MICHAEL SANTALAB, and really looking forward to that discussion as well. And Robert Christopher, both during the day and tonight, he's so excited that Michael's on the show. So thank you, Robert, for being excited, because we were excited speaking to Michael as well.
Yeah, he says Boban, Zvonimir Boban, a little less aggressive than SANTALAB, hey? So, well, that's a great interview. It's a really good in-depth feature interview, and he says not just about, he talks about his football past, but he also talks about the current situation as he and his brother Brendon run a football academy program down in Wollongong. So lots to talk about there. On a sad note, down here south of the border, Ante, we've just had some overnight some sad news of an absolute icon of the Croatian community, but also the Croatian football community down here pass away. Ivan Pavlovic was just a renowned activist within the Croatian football community. He was vice president, then also president of the Melbourne Knights in the early 80s. And he was also past president of St Albans Dynamo as well. Both St Albans Dynamo and the Melbourne Knights have put out touching tributes to Ivan, and particularly the Knights, who just earlier tonight put out a comment and said, arriving in Australia in 1959, obviously he would have been one of the pioneers of the community. Pavlovic was always community-minded, first joining the committee in the 1970s. He was part of the club leadership structure, i.e. that is Melbourne, Croatia, who saw success on the park in the 79 Doherty Cup and the 80 Ampol Cup final. While serving as vice president in 1980 under then club president Ivan Martin and Pavlovic inverted roles for the 81 season, which saw Pavlovic become president. I know I have personal recollections of dealing with the man. He was very, very involved with both India, and not just the football community. Hardeze, when Hardeze was a movement and not what it is now, I guess. He was heavily involved in that side of things down in Melbourne. He was also heavily involved with the Sunshine Croatian Catholic Centre. The list just goes on, and he was one of those. When the transition was happening from the older generation to the younger generation, he was one of those members of the older generation that gave the younger generation not only their his full support, but he actively helped and supported the youth or the youthful changeover, if you like. So a great man, a giant of the Croatian community, and to everyone who knew him and to his entire family as well, a heartfelt condolences to you all.
We always need good people like that in the community, absolutely. And I love that photo. Let me tell you, that photo just looks like he was enjoying himself. That is absolutely awesome. I love it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I love it. And Petar Fika says Dragan Ladic was his favourite goalkeeper growing up. Anyone else have got favourite players from any era? Let us know. Yeah. Obviously, we're heading up to the Euros as well. So I think Modric will get a lot of votes, right?
Yeah, definitely. We're going to take a break, folks. When we return, it's the news desk, and Ante will have a look at the Australian-Croatian scene. Well, I'll have a look at what is happening in Croatia, and there'll be a few very, very happy Blues supporters. Let's say that. All right. We won't be too long. It's the OZCRO Soccer Show.
Who's to say who's young, who's old? Compared to who? Age is complicated. You see, most people really stop getting older at age 26, but their bodies just don't get the memo. So, hidden inside most over 50-ish-year-olds is the soul and spirit of a 26-year-old, with the same loves and desires and hopes and dreams, just in slightly different packaging. Why waste time wondering when you could be enjoying? It's your life, and life is what you make it. So, what are you waiting for?
Ante,
We're
over
back.
to you, mate.
Yes, it is. I've never seen less teams on the winners list than this week. Unbelievable. Even Baby Lasagna couldn't win anything. Far out, let me tell you.
Oh,
So the weekend...
Get started. Far out.
Maybe when he grows up, he might win something because he's still a baby, right? So the weekend league winners list, we have got the Gold Coast, who are in first place, 7 wins in a row. And, they're doing great guns. Well done. Another big win for them. Newcastle, luckily there was a game because the rest of the round was absolutely washed out. There's been a lot of rain in the New South Wales state. So they're coming first, 2 wins in a row. And there was a huge 5-0 win over South Maitland. And Canberra, Croatia, thankfully got up with a big win. That's her first in 5 games, and that was over Canberra Olympic. So always good to beat Olympic when you're a Croatian club, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, going over to this weekend, what's happening? We've got a host of home matches. Look at that. Starting on Friday night, the big ex-NSL derby, and still a massive game in the calendar. Melbourne Knights taking on South Melbourne. That is absolutely huge on Friday night. Dandy's also at home on Friday night against Avondale. So 2 big games for both Croatian clubs. We've got Brisbane Knights. They're at home on Friday night as well. Newcastle, Croatia are at home on Saturday afternoon. O'Connor are at home to Canberra Olympic, who got smacked by Canberra, Croatia. So let's hope O'Connor can do the same. Western Knights are at home at Nashfield on Saturday afternoon. North Geelong Warriors are at home on Saturday afternoon, 14th versus 13th. Let's hope that North Geelong can pick up a victory. Taunchy, any news on North Geelong at all?
Well, there's unsubstantiated news or confirmation yet to be confirmed, but there's talk that North Geelong coach Joey Diddlitzer has stepped down. We're just hearing rumours down in Geelong, nothing confirmed, nothing has been we know for a fact. But look, if you stay on social media platforms, particularly North Geelong Warriors, we'll find out in the next, dare I say, 24 hours. But it's a must-win game, aren't it? If basically they're about 4 points behind Werribee, and if they don't win this, then sadly, with this is the first game of the second half of the season, things could look quite bleak. But we would say off air, things are not looking good down here in Victoria. Unfortunately, all the NPL clubs are somewhat struggling. Look, Dynamo St Albans are still in with a chance with the cup run. They've got a game next week against Green Gully, and look, they've had a new coach as well come just last week. But geez, coming up against the might of South Melbourne, that's a bit of a tough one. That.
Yeah, South Melbourne only had 1 loss so far this season, and St Albans, North Geelong and Werribee both with 1 win each. So let's hope that North Geelong get that second win.
But Melbourne Knights, they're coming up against South Melbourne, the original derby. Unfortunately, it's 9th versus 1st, and it's not we are the first team, we're the 9th team. So, things are looking a little bit bleak down here in Victoria at the moment, and hopefully things can change. But that's maybe something we can talk about for another day. Are there too many clubs, or is there something else, or what's missing? But anyway, if Victoria's not really doing well, it seems that the rest of Australia seems to be doing very, very well.
Yeah, exactly. Canberra, Croatia, they're 5th. They're at home on Sunday afternoon, and a rare Sunday home fixture for Hersel Zagreb. They're taking on the Stanwell Hawks, or the Inner West Hawks, whatever they want to call themselves. They're coached by ex-Sydney United legend, or Sydney Croatia legend, actually, back in 1985 it was, with Jimmy Patikas. So there's a name we haven't heard for a while, but yes, that'll be an interesting. Hopefully, Zagreb can get the victory there. Mm-hmm. In the away fixtures, we've got South Coast are away to Helensburgh on Saturday afternoon. Adelaide Croatia Raiders are away to Adelaide United, 5th versus 6th there, so that's a big match. We've also got on Saturday evening, Guelph are away to Kingsley. And on Saturday, Gold Coast are away to Queensland Lions. That's a huge fixture, first versus second.
That's a massive one, eh?
Massive one. So get on out there, Gold Coast fans. And on Saturday night as well. So all these away games are on Saturday. Sydney United are away to St. George City, and that's a huge game as well. St. George City, coached by ex-Sydney United player Mirko Juril. So, it's quite a few big games over the weekend. Let's hope we get more than 3 winners on the winners list this week.
Yes, that's right. Still in the Australia Cup, we've got a couple of teams, or not a couple, we've got several teams still in with the chance of round of 32 qualification, aren't there?
6 still standing on the weekend. We had Western Knights with a 2-1 win over Bayswater, and they were 1-0 down at halftime, came back to win. So that was a fantastic result for the Western Knights. And thank you to Brenton Ray, who's just put in that Olympic Kingsway will be Western Knights' next opponent. And unfortunately, Guelph, they lost 3-0 to Perth Red Star, and so they are out of the competition. So we've got 6 remaining teams. And Taunchi, if you can go to this fixture list, because the fixtures keep changing this Australia Cup. You've got to keep up with it. It's really hard. So tomorrow night, we've got Newcastle at home at Pasadena Oval against Katara South. Let's hope they get that victory there. So that's 1st versus 6th in the same competition. Then on Sunday afternoon, Glenorchy are away to Devonport. And so both teams are undefeated in the league. So this is going to be a tough match. St. Albans next Tuesday night. We'll have to do a live cross over to Churchill Reserve where they are playing Green Gully. So that'll be a tough fixture for St. Albans. And Sydney United, they were meant to be playing tonight, but it's been moved to next Wednesday. Because of all the rain, Macedonia Park needs to dry out. So that's the reason for the change in fixture. So we're waiting for Macedonia Park to dry. And so everybody next Wednesday in Sydney, drive down to Wollongong, and all the South Coast United fans, come on down and let's support Sydney United. And as we mentioned, Western Knights are playing West Olympic Kingsway. Thank you so much, Brenton. And O'Connor Knights, we're still waiting for their opponent. So there we go.
There we go, indeed. We're going to take, a little bit of a tribute break, if you like, with a couple of footages of the Croatian Football League and the newly crowned champions Dinamo Zagreb. When we return, then we will be looking at the Croatian scene. Folks, enjoy.
Koji vole Dinamo ovaj naslov prvaka, mislim da je ovo jedan od najslađih naslova prvaka koje je Dinamo osvojio u svojoj povijesti.
Dinamo coach Sergej Jakirovic congratulating all Dinamo fans, saying this is one of the sweetest titles that they've won ever. And as you can see, he's very emotional.
Yeah, it didn't look likely for a while. Obviously, Hajduk were in the lead before the winter break. Then the Rijeka looked like they were going to take it out, but Dinamo prevailed, right?
And to further add to the emotion, just days before the big crucial game between Dinamo and Rijeka, Jakirovic's mum passed away in Metkovic. So it's a very, very emotional time for the Dinamo coach. Congratulations to all the Dinamo fans, Australia-wide, worldwide, in fact. At the end of the day, the better team won.
And just hopefully they can have a good account of themselves in Europe next year. That's the main thing.
Well, that's right, and it's always going to be tough. And look, at the end of the day, there's no denying, a strong Croatian league will add a lot to any Croatian team playing in Europe. Next year, Rijeka and Hajduk obviously will have opportunities to play in Europe in obviously the lesser tournaments as well. We'll go through the results of the Supersport HNL, the Croatian Football League. So 34 rounds with 2 rounds to go. Gorica defeated Rudeš. Rudeš, well, we already know they're doomed for the second tier. Varaždin defeated Rijeka at home. Now that's an interesting result there. Rijeka did rest a few players, but that's no excuse. And even their coach said that's no excuse. They should have the depth and the class, but it just didn't happen. I think they may have taken the foot off the pedal as far as the league, because tomorrow night, Wednesday night, Croatian time, and early Thursday morning is the first leg of the Croatian Cup. Rijeka taking on Dinamo. That game's going to be played in Zagreb. The return leg will be played in 2 weeks' time on the 30th of May in Rijeka. Dinamo defeated Osijek 1-0. Lokomotiva defeated Slaven Belupo 2-1. And Istra drew with Hajduk 1-1. Hajduk had to score, basically had to come back from trailing 1-0. But
who scored?
Could this be a sign of what awaits Croatian fans and Hajduk fans next season, it was great to have Perisic back, but great to have him score his first goal back in the HNL. Now, folks, take a look at this. This is the build-up. Watch the header now, and then look at this strike from Perisic. Bang!
Bomba. Great goal. I mean, not only he was on fire this weekend, we obviously had Guardiola scoring 2 for Manchester City. We had Stanisic scoring. It's been a great weekend, and the more goals, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fantastic. You'll be able to see it from a few different angles now. It's just absolutely stunning. I mean, it just look, and it doesn't matter if you're a Hajduk fan, a Dinamo fan, Rijeka fan. If you're a fan of Croatian football, this is good for the Croatian national team. Whether he'll be playing in the Euros or not, that I don't know. Whether he'll be selected, you'd think he would. He's back now. If nothing else, he's an impact player.
When he's not playing, we missed him. I think we missed him in those internationals where he wasn't there.
Yeah, 100%, and I think that's the bottom line. Now let's turn our attention to the Prva Liga, obviously the second-tier competition. It's getting more and more interesting. We've got 3 rounds to go. Zrinjski remain at the top. They defeated Jarun in Zagreb 2-1. Šibenik absolutely destroyed Sesvete 4-0. But we got some footage of a rather contentious goal from Zrinjski, and just have a look at this. First of all, the player there is going to throw it in, and look at the player who's right up front who scores the goal. He's in a clearly offside position by a metre. In the top corner, the ref's about to lift his flag, or is he? And then he puts it down. Now, that happens up there. Now, that's, I don't know, it's causing a lot of controversy.
You need VAR. Where's the VAR? Far out.
Yeah, it's causing a lot of controversy. Anyway, we move over to the Druga Liga. Okay, and this is just as interesting. Opatija now maintain their 1-point lead at the top with ahead of Radnik Križevci. Over the weekend, Križevci just defeated Krk 2-1. And then where's Opatija there? Opatija also ended up winning 1-0. I think it was. The score's not there, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But it's just cutthroat. It is all happening, and it's just really incredible. Like those 2 divisions, the Prva Liga and Druga Liga, they will come down to the final game of the season to decide who is going to be promoted into the higher tier competition. Remember, with both those divisions, it's only the top team gets promoted automatically. The Druga Liga, there's a bit of a promotion playoff, but not in the Prva Liga. So whoever finishes second, if it's Zrinjski or if it's, let's say, Šibenik, and they finish second, they will not have a chance to get into the Prva Liga.
Come on, Šibenik, let's do it. We want to be back.
Yeah. At least there'll be a bit of a crowd. If Šibenik comes in, there'll be a bit of a crowd, you know. With Zrinjski, they do play out of Osijek's old stadium, the Gradski Vrt in Osijek, but they just don't have any supporters whatsoever. All right, let's jump over the border, Ante. Let's see what's happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina. There's the results of the latest round of matches, round 31. So 2 more games to go. And look, mathematically, Zrinjski still can do it. They still can do it, but it's highly unlikely they are going to do it. And at the end of the day, Borac defeated Tuzla City 6-2. Zrinjski defeated Gabela 4-1, but they're 5 points behind. And in effect, really, Borac just needs a draw and they're going to get through. That's the situation in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And finally, some Australian-Croatian news, some interesting Australian-Croatian news. And I do see Marko Uskok is on the chat line. Marko Uskok was the coach of this year's Australian-Croatian select that ended up going to the Vukovar tournament. We had Damien Brešić earlier in the year talking about that. One of the players, one of the kids that was in that team who also went last year, so he was age eligible to go again this year, the young fella from Melbourne, Jordan Vonja. He has, it looks like, gone to Hajduk and has, I don't know if he's signed probably hasn't signed a contract, or maybe he has an amateur contract with the juniors over there. I'd say it's the under-15 team. and Steven Lustica, former Canberra boy who's currently living in Melbourne, and he's with Western United. Upon his recommendation, and Lustica did play at Hajduk as well, young Vornia has gone to Hajduk and tried his luck. Looks like he's trialled and he's been successful. Now, Ante, hopefully next week we will either get someone from young Jordan Vornia's family or even Steven Lustica himself, because Steven knows the kid very well and he's been training him for quite a while. So we will. That's for next week. Fingers crossed we'll get someone, and that story we'll find out a little bit more information about that story, and that will be absolutely fantastic. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I was there at the centenary of Hajduk when they played Barcelona, and Lustica came on. It was good to see.
Oh, really? Oh, wow! There you go.
That was huge.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a little bit of a break. When we return, yes, that famous interview with Mark Viduka. It was a part of a podcast called Common Sense with Joey Barton. Absolutely riveting stuff, and we'll just get a small snippet of it after this break. Don't go away, folks. It is the OZCRO Soccer Show.
OZCRO Imports brings you the finest taste of Croatian beer, spirits and wine. Let your taste buds feel the years of nurtured produce and years of experience in producing some of the best beer and wines from Croatia. Established over 10 years ago and importing various wines, spirits and beers from Croatia, we stock the following products: Osječko pivo, Staro Češko and Velebitsko beers, all naturally crafted brews. We carry a wide range of shortcut spirits, which is renowned for top quality and has won numerous awards for its traditionally produced spirits. Some of these include Šljiva, Biljamovka, Kajsije, Višnja, Orahovac and Medovača. We also have wines ranging from the Ilok region in Slavonia, Belje wines from the Danube region, Malvazija from Istra, and the Palihnic branded Plavac Mali and Poship wines from the Dalmatian coast. Our mission is simple: to ensure that quality, unique and reasonably priced Croatian goods can be enjoyed right here in Australia. We also cater for special gift packs for customers, be they birthdays, christenings, weddings, etc. It's easy to order online, or you can telephone us to arrange a special package. Visit our website at www.ozcro.com.au, like our Facebook page OZCRO Imports, or you can contact us by calling 0419 44 55 18 or email sales@ozcro.com.au.
Yeah, if you need any liquor, any imported Croatian liquor, OZCRO Imports are your place to go.
I had some Velebitsko, let me tell you. That's just awesome stuff.
Is it? Oh, well, there you go. There you go.
Litre, man. It was awesome.
Of course. Big cheerio to all the folks that are active in our chat lines. Tony Chavar says, expand the HNL to 12 teams. That's a good comment. We might have to discuss that, debate the merits of that, whether to expand it or not. Over the years, over the last 30 odd years, there's been so many changes to the format. Personally, I think a Liga 10 team league is ideal because there's just not enough quality. But each to their own opinion, I guess.
Well, sometimes, yeah, you expand and then, the quality. I mean, I don't know. It's controversial, like with the A-League expanding, right? When it was 8 to 10 team comp, it was sort of, a bit bigger than what it is now. Sometimes you expand and it doesn't quite work. So
yeah, absolutely. Now we're going to go for a trip back in time, I suppose, where we're going to have a snippet of an interview, a very good interview that was it's not even a week old on the YouTube. And Englishman Joey Barton had this interview on his podcast Common Sense with the great V-bomber Mark Viduka, who these days calls Croatia home. And he talks about all sorts of topics ranging from, his days playing at the Melbourne Knights and playing in Australia to going to Croatia, going to Scotland and then in England and then coming back to Croatia. But I think it's his take on a lot of non-football things, his own background, his own heritage, the history of Croatia. The man knows his history, but the way he talks and the way he talks about it, where he just leaves no stone unturned, has to be seen to be really, really appreciated. Here's a snippet, a small snippet that goes for about 4.5 minutes of the interview with Mark Viduka. Enjoy.
I'll tell you what happened. There was I was trying to tell you the story, but it cut out. What it was Tito, after the Second World War, he was a Stalinist, and what happened was, started off really full-on communism, like in Russia, yeah. After the war, he was killing all the people that were against him, that the wealthy people, the influential people, and all that sort of stuff. And he wanted to put on, full communism. And what happened was, he was a Stalinist, basically. And what happened was, I think it was, I'm not sure the exact date, maybe late 50s or something, Stalin wanted to control Yugoslavia. They wanted to take control of Yugoslavia, and he went against Stalin. And Stalin, because the border with Yugoslavia is in Hungary, and Stalin sent tanks that they were going to attack Yugoslavia, and the Yugoslav, Tito, sort of, measured up against him. He sort of stopped them. He resisted it. And what he did was, it was almost a war between Stalin and Tito, yeah? And what happened was, after that, which was very ironic, he made this, like a gulag, but it's an island in Croatia. It's an island where he would send political prisoners and all that. After that happened, he started sending all his mates who were Stalinists onto that island, after that. So it's a very paranoid situation in these type of
the early
countries.
part of the 20th century, and then obviously what happened after the Second World War in the kind of Balkan states.
Yeah, and what happens is that these communists, they whinge about capitalists. Yeah, that's their fascists and capitalists. That's their nemesis. You know what I mean? And what happens is, in the end, what happens in communism just through the process of practicality of the whole system, is these leaders and all that, they actually become czars. The way they live is so lavish, and so they become capitalists. You understand?
Yeah.
They end up living like Tito used to. He had the best of everything. He's got villas on every part of the country. He lives like a capitalist. You know what I'm saying?
Like a king.
Like a king, like a czar, like a czar.
Well, yeah, it's the same.
And what happens
Putin's
is
the same.
Yeah, and exactly, but they're all talking about capitalism is bad and all that, but they all love money.
But then, when if we had to do the Olympics or we had to go to a World Cup, I don't think the Scotsman, the Irishman, there's so much bad blood because of what's gone on that and I can imagine yours is that on steroids.
That is the perfect explanation. Like, Yugoslavia was a fake country. It's made fakely, yeah. And communism, you look at a timeline, yeah? If you've got a timeline of 1,000 years of, just say, Croatia, yeah? Communism was a tiny part, 50 years of 1,000. How many is that?
Yeah.
So before that, you've got your traditions, you've got 1,000 years of that or whatever. And then all of a sudden along comes these communists who change all of that. They bring their own system, which is not a democratic one. They bring in because Croatians are big Catholics, yeah, and that was a huge part of big reason why Croatia lasted that many years, was that family unit, those traditions that they have in everything. One of them was that. Now communists, they don't like religion, they don't like the church because it's against
the state. It's not the state. They want the state first. Yeah,
it competes with them. So that's one of the things that brought all of these things together. So all of a sudden these people come in and change the whole scenario. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And then after 50 years, it comes back again. And there's still remnants of these, some people who like that old country. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Secure your sporting future with Citizen HR, your ultimate safety net. Feeling the uncertainty of the world's sporting landscape? With political and economic instability, it's time for a backup plan. Consider becoming a citizen of Croatia with Citizen HR, your pathway to a second passport for sporting resilience. Take control of your sporting future and ensure your family's protection with a stable and secure country. Citizen HR offers expert guidance and support to make the sometimes confusing and overwhelming process of obtaining a second passport for sporting purposes a breeze. Mariana shares her experience. I'm so glad I applied for Croatian citizenship when I did. I'm concerned about my family's future in Australia. I can't wait for us all to move to Croatia. Citizen HR made it all a breeze. Don't wait. Secure your sporting future today. Download Citizen HR and leap into a world of sporting safety and security. So what are you waiting for? Head over to https://citizenhr.app today. Use the code AUSCRO for 50% off any biography translations you order.
Welcome back to the show, and we've got a very, very special guest who I'm very looking forward to speaking to, a gentleman who I've known for 3 decades or so, which is just maybe 4 decades. Unbelievable. The last century.
Your age, aren't you?
We had something to do with each other last century when he was at Sydney United, let me tell you. So it's my great pleasure to welcome former Sydney United player and South Coast United player, Mr. MICHAEL SANTALAB, to our OZCRO Soccer Podcast. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you for having me, Ante. Tonchi, how are you?
Good, mate. Great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And how is it down in Wollongong?
It's been very wet for the past week, but we had some sunshine today, so everyone's a bit happier.
Finally, we can dry our clothes. Up here in Sydney, same thing, Michael. It's been the same goings on there. So, Michael, tell us a little bit about, obviously you were involved with the South Coast United 40th anniversary. Tell us about that night and, a bit about the club and how special it's been to you and your family.
Yeah, it was a good night. Andy Pascalides was down as the host. Always a good laugh when Andy's around. But yeah, mate, it was really good. It's been a little while since I've been sort of tied up or present with the club. But it was to catch up with old faces, to see and mingle with people who formed the club back in '84, and even just past players and personnel within the club that supported the club and were involved over the past 40 years. It's plenty of stories to tell and plenty of drinks to be had.
And did you start there as a junior? Is that right?
No, so the junior club didn't exist. It's only been going for probably 10 years or so, not even 10 years from the junior perspective. But I first joined the club as an interim first grade coach when I was 16, and then played half a season not long after I did that coaching stint with them, and then returned later on after I finished up with Sydney United and coming back from Malaysia that I played there for a year and then took over as their player coach for the first grade for 7 years.
And how did you go as a coach and a player? Did you enjoy that at the club? Did you have a great sense of Wollongong community there?
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good. I was lucky. I had a core group of players who at that time was 17, 18 and were open to being taught properly. Well, when I say properly, but being taught by someone who'd been at a high level and knew what they were on about. And those boys, one of the players is now the head coach and has been doing the player coach for the past 6 years, 7 years. And a lot of those players, either when I see them, we talk fondly of those 7 years and everything that they learnt. And, it's pretty proud when they're saying that the pivotal part of their football career was being coached by me. So it's a nice gesture.
Yeah, Michael, we saw some footage there of the night, and that's courtesy of Andy Pascalides. He actually produced that and is via his Facebook page. So good on you, Andy. Yeah. Mate, how active is the Croatian community in Wollongong? By that I mean was that like a massive event that doesn't happen often? So it's great to have that happening, and or did it sort of kind of for at least for a short time, did it kind of really liven up the community?
I think there were a few. When I was still involved coaching back, it was we were supposed to have the 25th anniversary, and there were a few various reasons why that didn't happen. So there was always sort of a build-up, but this was like one where maybe with timing post-COVID and just everyone wanting to be in one place that were associated, it all just sort of came together and worked. And I mean, there were I think there was 250, nearly 300 people there on the night. And like I said, it was a mix of founders of the club, ex-players from youth grade, reserve grade, first grade from the past. Families, obviously. There was, some families have had 3 generations and their kids or their grandkids are now playing, so it was, and everyone was in the room. So it was a pretty special evening.
Brilliant.
That is absolutely impeccable. And great celebration. It's always important to have those celebrations with those particular milestones for clubs. I mean, we've got obviously Gold Coast celebrating this year as well, a milestone year. And, we had Sydney United last year with their 65th. We had the Knights as well with their 70th. So it's been quite a few milestones around and about in the past couple of years. And so, Michael, how did you end up as an interim coach as a 16-year-old? I mean, how does that work out?
Well, I suppose I was probably at the time the only sort of real local Croatian kid who was probably playing at a reasonable level in the representative space. And I actually don't know how it came about. I know the coach at the time got sacked, and whether I'd been to watch a game or I don't know how. I honestly don't know how my name popped up at that time, but I was a 16-year-old trying to coach seasoned like men. And I remember I had an encounter with one of the players who was just going through the motions on that first night of training, and I don't think my voice had even broken yet. And I'm trying to scream at him. But I had the respect because of the level I was at, and regardless of how old or young I was, these adults were still buying into what I was trying to do, even though I was only there for a short period of time at the start.
You tell us a bit about that junior journey you had, because obviously, you were identified at an early age and you eventually went to the AIS. I mean, how did all that come about? How were you spotted, and how, tell us about your junior journey.
Yeah, so I played just obviously growing up, playing my local club here in Wollongong, and then back in those days, the representative stuff started under 11s. So played for the Illawarra representative under 11s, and worked my way through the Illawarra reps from 13s. The Wolves took over the Illawarra reps. I think I was maybe 15s or 16s, and then from there. From Wolves under 16s, we went to the old NSL youth team. But in that interim is the period that I played half a season with South Coast United in the first grade and did that little interim stint. And really just sort of got picked up from the AIS from the Wolves youth team, playing in the NSL youth league back in the day. Just sort of got picked up from there, then went to the Institute of Sport, and then took a few steps up to the promised land, mate.
There's a lot of debate about the AIS. It's been brought back a lot. I mean, was it a valuable experience for you? I mean, do you see the advantages of it as compared to all the different sort of academies and things that are happening at this, currently?
I'm probably going to echo the sentiments of every player that's been through the AIS. So for me, if I did not have that 12, 15 months there, then I don't think my career would have gone and would have been what it is. I was listening to Vidux on a podcast, Mark Vidux on a podcast today, and he was saying exactly the same thing. Like we were 16, the best 16-year-olds in the country, in the Canberra, in a professional setup. We had everything at our disposal. From recovery to full training twice a day, having school and our college tailored around our football. That really, it laid the foundation to all our careers, regardless of where we went to, without a doubt. And, we talk ex-AIS players, we talk to each other, and there's just like I don't know, we don't know why the system failed, because it produced so many top quality players, even before my generation. All the Aussie teams and all the overseas players that come through predominantly came from the AIS.
Mate, you are involved in youth development. You've got your own academy along with Brendon, so you're quite. Your opinion really matters when it comes to this type of thing, junior development. Apart from the obvious, which is something like an AIS style program at the very, very top, what else is needed at even grassroots level, or sort of that entering that elite path? What else is needed? Because this country at the moment is producing, maybe that's not the right word, Ante, maybe identifying the right young talent. Is that the problem? Is that the problem? Is talent identification the problem in this country, or is it the cost? We talk about the cost. What needs to be done to fundamentally change youth development and improve it in Australia?
Look, we can sit here all night and talk about the deficiencies in the current system, but I honestly, and for me, probably one of the aspects of that discussion is that the best talent or the best players are now dispersed all over the place.
Yeah.
Where previously, I can only relate to my era when I was growing up and playing, and rep teams and different selections were being picked. And the AIS is an example of that, is that the best players at that time were all centralised in one spot, training together, playing together. The AIS was built around selecting players at 16, 17 and using them players, majority of those as the Australian under-20s team, and then flowing on to the Olympic team. So for me, especially, nowadays being in the academy space, what I'm seeing and experiencing with academy is that the actual best players that we've got now are in elite academies. They're not even touching the SAP. I don't know what it's like in Victoria, but the SAP system or your general FFA systems. It's more in the academies which are now coached by elite ex-pros.
Yep.
So I would say a big factor of the lack of identification is, I wouldn't say so much about cost, because when you break down the actual cost per session, it's not that expensive, So, and you want the best coaches in the best jobs. Well, the best coaches need to be paid accordingly. Yep. And another reason why the pros, have got value and have got credibility and know what they're doing, and that's why their academies are what they are, because they're providing top quality service, a lot of value. And you equate it. You're paying $30 to $40 a training session per your kid. That's not that much.
Yeah. I remember Josip Skorko a few years back. I think it was on an interview for Optus Sport, broke it down, and I remember he went even further on one of our podcasts, if I'm not mistaken. And he basically said, look, over the course of the season, if you look at it down in Victoria. And certainly what North Geelong Warriors at the time was charging, it ended up being to like $10, $15 per session. Now, if you go out and get tuition for, I don't know, a musical instrument or singing lessons or something like that, it's $40, $50, or whatever the case may be. So you break that down, it's not that expensive, But yeah, that's putting it into good perspective.
Yeah. And the flip side of that is the coaching side of it, right? So I actually coached my youngest son in the SAP system in the under-9s. And when I broke it down to the hours that I put into the coaching under-9s team, I think it equated to something like $9.75 an hour.
There you go.
Right? So you have an ex-professional who's coaching badges, who knows what he's doing, and that's not the market rate for someone at that level. So you can't really blame all the the guys like myself who have been in the game, play the game at a high level, know what we're talking about, to go out and start their own academy.
No, yeah, everybody wants to get the best level of coaching, and obviously, I think a good point you made before is, with the AIS, the best of the best came together. Whereas geographically, I think Australia is also, a little bit of a hindrance, because you've got, some players who are good playing over here in Perth, some players who are over here playing Northern Queensland and all that sort of stuff, but they're not getting together and not playing against each other and all those sorts of things. Whereas you had that experience.
That was the beauty of the old national tournaments. Every state would have their state teams picked. And I'm pretty sure, I played on the 16s nationals tournament at Nepean, and the AIS coaches were watching the under-16 tournament, I think they actually scouted the intake from that tournament as well. But it's very difficult these days with all the A-League academies and all the different centers of excellence and whatever you want to call it, that the best players are actually seen in one place together and identified. Yeah,
100%. Now, Michael, Taunchi, you can bring up this particular photo that I've got prepared. This is back in 1999. This was a little bit of a younger-looking you and a younger-looking me at the Sydney United. That's actually the King Tomislav Club. And this was pretty much 25 years ago exactly. So this month, 25 years ago, Sydney United won the crown. Michael was a massive part of that particular team. And obviously, we made the grand final that year as well. Michael, what are some of your memories, particularly of that season? That season must hold a special place in your career.
That was the best season that I had as a player. And funny enough, it was my first season in the pro ranks coming out of the AIS. There were so many good memories of that year. We just had going into that season, it was just. We were really the underdogs. I mean, we had a combination of, there was 3 or 4 of younger guys like myself, Mile Sajovski, Joel Griffiths, who were probably the more well-known younger kids. And then we had, a mix of, there was, majority were state league players that Dave Mitchell and Laurie McKenna pulled in at the time. And then we had a few older heads in there, Walter Ardoni, we had Velimir Kupashak in there, Joey Vrukic and Richie Plesher, and it was just like a top unit, as you can probably remember, right? But it just blended, and we worked. We had a great teamwork ethic. We actually played good football that year. We scored a lot of goals, and it was a top year. I still remember every home game when we scored a goal, the Wenger bus song would come on the speakers.
yes. DJ Kekes would play that every single time. Every single time.
Do you still catch up with those blokes, or some or all of those blokes?
I wouldn't say we catch up, but we do bump into each other. Just even through social media stuff, we're always sort of following and liking and commenting and so forth. But what I will say is, and the beauty of football is that whenever we do see each other, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, 5 years apart, it's like we're still in the change room together. It's like we're still 25 years younger, And that's the beauty of what we do and what we did.
Yeah, it was a very special season. It was interesting because obviously that grand final, everyone was gutted. We lost 3-2 to South Melbourne, but it was interesting. That was Ange Postecoglou's first grand final win. And you mentioned Laurie McKenna before, of course. He was on the Sydney United side, and he had quite a good career as a coach as well in A-League level, didn't he? So both coaches went on to great success.
Yeah, I'll probably, say that Ange has probably had a better career than Laurie. But
just a little bit. Just a little bit. Hey, Laurie's hasn't finished yet, all right?
You know what? It's funny. Everyone's got stories to tell. I still remember clearly after we received our runners-up medal. We're coming off the stage, and we're walking past the South Melbourne players and staff, and I still remember Ange he stepped out of the group and said to me personally, he said, "Michael, congratulations on a great first season," and that was so small, but for me, I'll never forget that, and obviously now where he is and what he's done in his coaching career, that still sticks, And that's a story
that just shows the class, doesn't it?
That's a story that I rarely tell, but it's just something that will stick with me forever.
Yeah. Mate, do you follow the A-League much? Do you follow what's going on with talk of all this national second division and all of that kind of stuff, or do you sort of pulled away from those kind of football at the top level in this country?
I still look. I'm a fan of the game. Obviously, I'm obsessed with it. I live with it. I'm 6 days a week on field with kids coaching, and to be honest, I do watch the A-League. I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with watching it, but I do watch it because the bottom line is that a lot of mates and a lot of people that I play with are coaching now.
Yeah.
So, and I follow that out of that interest where, Millier's at MacArthur, Roods is at the Wanderers, Popper, who, and I got the link with Brendon because Brendon was in the frame for a while and sort of followed him. So I take interest because my generation of players is now coaching, and I like to watch and see the different styles and personalities and see how they've changed compared to what they were when we were playing.
Have you got an itch to start coaching kind of at that higher level?
Oh, you know what? I did. But to be honest with you, right now and where I'm at, and the age of my own kids, I think it'd be too selfish for me to try to do that right now. So I've been coaching since I was 16. So I've been coaching for nearly 30 years. So I'd like to think that over that time, and that's been across under 5 kids to from age 5 to first grade adults, and so I'm a big believer in having to learn your craft and understand on all levels what you're coaching and how to coach and how to communicate. So for me, I think if I do choose to go down that path, whenever that might be, I've still got a pretty decent grounding, and done my trade, not just tick the box and got a license and jumped in.
Yeah, fantastic.
And you obviously were able to blend the two, right? Like we were talking last week to Patrick and tell me about jobs, etc. Obviously, you planned for your future, didn't you? Like you actually went studied. You've got a successful career as an accountant at the moment, and all those sorts of things. I mean, how did you manage all that in between playing as well?
So I think that was sort of probably forced. I wouldn't say forced upon me, but I had to make that decision, and my family pushed me to have an education. Back then, when I was, the A-League hadn't started yet, so I had that big transition from, the NSL finishing, the 8 or 9 month time lag to the A-League starting, and it was at that point where, I sort of said to my wife at the time, or my wife now, Vicky now, that I'm going to come home and I'm not going to pursue the A-League. I need to finish my accounting. I'll come back and play locally, and we'll focus on the next step of life. But you see, and I see my brother go through it, and I see all ex-pros go through it who don't focus on any type of education through their career, and they get to the end and they're lost. They're lost. There's no direction. There's no clarity what they want to do. So I was fortunate that and I was sort of academically inclined even when I was at school. So I didn't have to be pushed to study, which obviously helped long term.
Now, that's an interesting point that you make, Michael, because I'm sure there are a lot of parents now who've got kids, and some of them are probably entering that elite pathway, and there's always that kind of thing of you have to have that fallback option. As parents, we always say to the kids, you got to learn, and the kids just say, I just want to be a professional. I just want to be a professional. That's all it is. But going back to your own experiences, like, for example, at the AIS, where you said school was tailored around the football program and that kind of stuff, was that the kind of back then? Did they maybe start to encourage you to maybe also look at life after football, even though you were just entering your kind of football world, if you like?
I think looking back, there wasn't much done in that space.
Yeah.
I think football is a pretty cutthroat industry, and I think when you're in that moment, players are solely focused on playing, keeping themselves in shape, recovery, and their headspace is just in one pure direction. I think there could have been more done in respect of the promotion of, there is a need to do something.
Yep.
Because this career doesn't last forever. But I mean, we're talking old NSL days where that's when I was involved, where soccer was a part-time job.
Yes, true. Yep.
So it wasn't the sole career. It was only when I went to Parramatta Power after United that that was our first full-time playing gig. And that was a culture shock because we'd training in the morning and we wouldn't train for the rest of the day, and we'd have 14 hours spare and we wouldn't know what the hell to do with ourselves. So yeah,
how'd you find that? How'd you like that? How'd you find going from being a part-timer all your life, so to speak, and football kind of being an evening, training hobby and this, to all of a sudden that's your job. That's like that's your full-time job. How'd you cope with in those early days? With, did you take up PlayStation or whatever, reading? Is that where you started studying? Like how?
So I was studying part-time during that time. I mean, if I didn't have that, I probably would have went nuts, to be honest. Because even though we were professional, or so-called professional, there was it was still quite amateur. It was still quite amateur when I look at now what professional space is right now. But yeah, I know I really feel for the current kids in this environment right now, particularly in the elite space, because people don't understand that it's such a minority that make it to the top, and there has to be a plan B, and if not a plan C.
Yeah, good point. You mentioned Parramatta Power. After Power, you ended up coming back to Sydney United, and pretty much the last couple of seasons of the NSL. You didn't have the success as a team like that you had previously with United. How were those last couple of years of the NSL?
Yeah, they were quite different to the first few that I had. You could sense. I think we could all sense that there was going to be change. We still obviously enjoyed the camaraderie. We all were a little bit older. We had wives and whatever else. So I suppose as much as we love the travel side of it too, there does come a point where that takes a toll a little bit on home life and family life too. But I mean, look, we were by then probably mid-20s, or when I'm speaking for myself, mid-20s. So we weren't sort of those young guys trying to crack it into the ranks. We were, we'd been around for 5-6 years already. You mature a bit. So and it does become like anything, it does become a job. The novelty wears off, and it is a job. But there's worse jobs you can have in life, right?
And you had Mila Jedinak alongside you, right? In those couple of years, Eddie Bosma, players like that, right? Was he involved as well at that time? I don't know. My memory's not as good as what
Mila had just come. He just cracked into the first team. I think Branko Chilina was coaching at the time, and I remember Mila made I think it was his debut, and he was playing against Brisbane Strikers, and I don't know if you remember Fernando Rec. He played for Brisbane.
Oh, I remember him. Yep, that name.
And Millsy was given the task of jumping on Fernando for game one. So he had a quick initiation into NSL. But yeah, no, it's there was a lot of good players, like a lot of great players back in those days. I would go as far as to say that there were better players back then than what there are now.
There you go. That's an interesting point. And speaking of now, I guess there's been a lot of talk about National Second Division. Wollongong Wolves is one club that's been figuring prominently in discussion. Sydney, Croatia, Sydney United as well. What's your gut feeling say? What do you think? Will it get off the ground, and will it get off the ground next year?
So I think all of us from our hearts want everything to take off.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that it may be sustainable for a short period of time, but we do have a serious problem with football in Australia from a financial perspective.
Mm-hmm.
From the media perspective, from those governing the body, from what TV revenue we're generating and where that filters to. So for me, I look at when you look at the second division, I look at back the old NSL, right? And I lived through it. Auntie will vouch. There were times where money at our club was very stringent and non-existent for a long period of time. A lot of us were paying and working for free for a long period of time. And my fear is that the second division will revert back to something like that. You may get the clubs who are financially viable and can sustain themselves, but I don't know if it is a long-term solution and how it's going to sustain itself.
Yeah, especially with the travel and everything else. Yeah, I do remember those days very well, Michael. And they weren't good, but somehow as a unit, that 99 teams, kept it together. And I think, the coaching and the staff and the players had a lot to do with that. And, ended up, obviously, winning the title and making that special grand final. And we mentioned Millie Adinak, of course, he's over with Ange. We mentioned Ange before as well. Just want to say it was Mother's Day a couple of days ago, and one of the nicest families I recall back in my United days is your family. Your mum and dad and your brother, Brendon, who was younger at the time, they used to come everywhere, every training session, every game, everything. They were so lovely, etc. I mean, how special was that support and, for you as a player and a young player?
Look, they were awesome, and they continue to be awesome. I've got 3 kids playing the sport, and wherever they can, they're at least one of those games every weekend, if not 2, if not 3, if they can be. And look, like any person that's played the game, and you require your parents to sacrifice a lot and to dedicate a lot of their time to it. So yeah, mum and dad, they're special. They're my family, and let's pray that everyone's around for a long time to come.
Absolutely right. And where are your kids playing? Are they playing at different clubs around Wollongong?
Yeah, all different clubs. Yeah. So my daughter plays at a local club here in Shahaba in Wollongong. My son Noah plays for our local Unadera club, and my little guy's in the under 11s at the Wolves in the SAP system.
And if anyone's interested in getting in touch with yourself and Brendon and your academy, how do they go about it, Michael?
Yeah, so via website or social media. So we're TS11Football. We're coming up to nearly 2 years since we kicked it off, and like I said, we're 6 days a week, and we work with boys and girls from the age of 5 up to sort of 13, 14 at this point in time.
Oh, that's brilliant, and that's a couple of days a week, yeah. You're or how many days a week does it take up of you? Plus you're doing all this other stuff.
We're 6 afternoons a week with the academy. So,
goodness.
Yeah, so at the moment we're just over a couple hundred players a week.
Wow, very busy. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. We've gone over half an hour. That's incredible. We'd love to. We'll certainly have to get you down, get you on the show again and talk a little bit more. But we really appreciate you taking your time to come on the OZCRO Soccer Show, and wish you and Brendon all the best with TS11 football there in Wollongong. And look forward to hearing more Santalabs in the future, making their name in the sport of football, the sport that we all love so much.
Thanks very much for having me, guys, and always a pleasure. And anytime, maybe I can get the brother on next time.
Yeah, good. Say hi to Brendon for us.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, Michael.
And that was Michael Santalab, and he tells us off air that has actual Hungarian origins somewhere way back. Ante, we're going to take a break, and when we return, we'll be ready to wind up this week. Well, that brings us pretty much to the end of the show, Ante, and guess what? Breaking news. We broke it here on the OZCRO Soccer Show, and it has been confirmed in the last 20 or so minutes. North Geelong Warriors have issued out an official statement saying they would like to announce it has mutually parted ways with senior coach Joey Didlitzer. The club wishes Joey all the best with his future endeavours. North Geelong Warriors will be making an announcement regarding new coaching appointments in the near future. Assistant coaches Stuart Begg and Sean Mann take the reins this week against Werribee City. We broke it right here, didn't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your scoop, Toichi. Geez, all those North Geelong text messages must have been going hot right before the show, right?
Geez, it was not North Geelong. It was outside of North Geelong, let me tell you that. But a good journalist never reveals his sources. But before we go, Ante, I forgot to say as well, like what happened over in Croatia. Futsal. If anyone follows futsal, I tell you what, there's a lot happening in futsal over in Croatia as well. Olmisum from Ormish came up against Futsal Dinamo. in the fourth game down in Ormish. Whoever wins best first to three is the final series, and it has been riveting stuff. It came down to 2-2, and then Futsal Dinamo had a penalty saved by the keeper Rozga. This guy is a gun. In the penalty shootout afterwards, he saved it twice. And but the Futsal Dinamo managed to get through and actually ended up winning. But it was heart-stopping to say the least. Rozga, he saved 3 penalties before it did go down to penalties in extra time. In the end, Futsal Dinamo won 3-2. Now, if Olmisum had have won this, they would have won the title, sort of a come-from-behind title. So the series now heads to Zagreb for the decider, and there'll be like 4,000, maybe even more if they decide to have it in the bigger Dom Sportov or whatever. But it's futsal is really taking off in a big way in Croatia.
Good to see a huge crowd there, yeah, and definitely, some of the most technically gifted players you see anywhere around the world, played futsal either at youth level or, at some stage in their careers, because you develop a different set of skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing about that is majority of the players that do play in the professional Croatian futsal league actually don't play outdoors. So it's played at the same time. So it's very interesting. Now, Croatia has qualified for the World Cup, the Futsal World Cup this year, which will be held in Uzbekistan in September, October, I think it is, later this year.
Are we covering it?
Oh, I hope so. I certainly hope so. It is the first time that Croatia has actually qualified for the Futsal World Cup since 2000, way back in 2000 in Guatemala.
Wow.
How would you pronounce that? I'm not too sure.
Wow.
It's futsal is on the rise in Croatia, and it's good to see that. And the good thing about futsal, unlike the outdoor soccer and what happens there is rivalry. Yes, there is great crowd atmosphere, but there isn't that hooliganism element as well. Not yet, anyway.
That's right.
The atmosphere they create is just electric. And last year we did feature when Futsal Dinamo won the Croatian League. The atmosphere in Zagreb was electric. But yeah, you watch it's on YouTube. You can see the highlights on YouTube. And it is absolutely just fantastic stuff. Mate, on that note, that brings us to the end of the show.
Yeah, that's right. It's been a huge show. Really great thanks to MICHAEL SANTALAB for coming on. And, all of our guests this year have been fantastic. Fascinating stories and fascinating, I love listening to how they got to where they were, their experiences and all those sorts of things. So, yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to answer some questions from me and you.
That's exactly right. Folks, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being a part of the OZCRO Soccer Show this week. A big cheerio to our major sponsors, our major season sponsors, Living Gems and Gem Life, Gold Coast-based firm, and Adrian Pulic up there. Thank you for all your support this year, and to all of our business advertising sponsors as well. This week we had Pleme App and OZCRO Imports as well. If you'd like to support us, if you'd like to sponsor us, get in touch with us via our Facebook page, private message us, or email us at communitysportmedia@gmail.com. Folks, until next Tuesday night, when we're going to have some live crosses to various Australia Cup clashes, as well as another great guest and possibly 2 great guests next week as well. Until then, have a great week. Bye-bye.
Like a notch.